Okay. All right, so we've officially restarted recording. I just wanted to make sure that was working before I got too far into things. So networking that sticks, that is going to be our main conversation topic for this morning. So like I mentioned, my role here is to work with students to do some career advising, to help them figure out what they're going to do with their degree, to work on resumes and cover letters, and ultimately to help them with networking, to connect with other students, to connect with industry professionals. And so that is both a role that Laura and I have had the opportunity to do over the last series of months, and working from home has definitely posed its own challenges. But with that being said, we're also going to talk a little bit today about the benefits of virtual networking and how we can really optimize networking through different platforms that Brock offers. I see a few questions popping up in the chat just saying that they can't access the form. Okay, bear with me for a really quick second, and I'm just going to try and get you another link. Sorry about that. It does look like that it's working for some people. Yes, you are required to log in with a Brock email, I believe. If that is causing some issues for alumni, again, we'll just have active students fill that out. Sorry about that. All right, let's see if that works. Alrighty, otherwise, please continue to put any questions or concerns in the chat as we get started. All right, Laura, we're good to go. Perfect. So a little bit of an overview of what you can expect. We're going to talk about networking in a nutshell. What is it and how do we do it? We're going to talk about making virtual connections, so networking throughout this pandemic, and what online etiquette means, because that is a big importance during this time. And then ultimately connecting with Career Zone. So as students and as alumni, you have access to a large amount of resources that will benefit you maybe in your job search, your career search, and beyond. So at the end, we're going to talk a little bit about the resources and how you can get connected to them. Okay, so a few questions just to get us started, and please feel free to type in the chat. You know what? Some of these questions might seem a little bit obvious to some, but there might be a few people here that are new to networking and, aren't really sure how to get started. And so that's what we are aiming to help those people out with, and to those of you that are experienced in networking, to hopefully give you some new ideas and tricks. So question number one, what is networking and when would you use it? Feel free to type some answers in the chat. Give us a couple ideas. Making connections. Yep, it can be as simple as that. That's for sure. And you can use it always. There's a variety of environments, situations that you can use it in. Absolutely. Relationship building, collaborating for upcoming job opportunities. Absolutely. These are great ideas. Thanks for mentioning them. Let's see here. An effective way to build relationships with employers that you want to have a relationship with for future purposes. Absolutely. Networking to make connections, getting ideas, professional development, and finding new opportunities. So yes, absolutely. There's such a wide variety of ways that networking can be used and purposes for it. We should use it all the time, not just when job searching, and then gathering information. Absolutely. So with that being said, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of those comments in a few minutes. But on the other hand, what are some fears that you might have about networking? Maybe you're new and you feel like, I don't know anyone, or I'm an introvert. It's hard for me to kick up a conversation. What are some of those fears that you might have about networking? And someone previously said helping each other and putting people in the best position to succeed. Absolutely. Fears, including not getting a response back. It's possible. Saying the wrong thing. Non-responsiveness, may feel out of your comfort zone. That I have nothing to offer with the people that I'm networking. Knowing the right answers. How to use the appropriate language. How not to sound invasive or weird. Absolutely. Permanently making the wrong impression. Trying to have something to say when just checking in to maintain a relationship. saying the wrong thing or talking to someone that you weren't supposed to, not asking the right questions, imposter syndrome. These are all legitimate fears. These are all things that I think have crossed through everyone's mind, whether you've been to a networking event or not. But we're hoping that we can, some of these, that I have nothing to offer or I don't have enough, connections, that these are myths, and we're hoping to bust some of those today and help you gain confidence to realize that you do have something to offer. Thank you so much for those comments in the chat. If we move to the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about how are we going to define networking. So let's take a look at some of these definitions here. So networking is connecting and building relationships, simply put. We have lots of comments in the chat that go a little bit more in depth. Absolutely, we're going to dive into that. And starting a conversation by showing interest. That's really all it is. People connecting based off of a common interest, which is truly helping others. Networking is not a numbers game trying to just collect as many contacts as you can. It's not just a matter of, building up the numbers, how many people follow you on LinkedIn. I would say it's definitely quality of those relationships over quantity. And then starting a conversation by asking for help. We're not just networking for our benefit as much as, there might be things that we're inquiring about. We might need help in certain areas. We're not just starting the conversation asking for help. We are starting the conversation by getting to know someone, by showing interest, by listening to their story, by going back and forth in that conversation, and then eventually leading to, here's the situation that I'm at. Would you know someone who, would be able to help me in this area? So it's a little bit more than just getting help. So if we go to the next slide, networking is a mindset. So it's going to be building relationships through conversation. And that being said, conversation might be easier for some of us than others. But the great thing is that I think conversation can kind of, happen naturally when it's based off of a common ground, a common interest, and knowing that you want to help one another. And it's about being curious. So think of it this way. Everyone has an interesting story to tell. Ask about their ambitions, their family, where they come from, and where they're going. View networking as a powerful tool for a future career, but also as a way to make friends with some of those contacts. And I really love that. I think that's a really accurate way to sum up networking. And think of it like this too. Networking equals planting seeds that grow into relationships. Your first conversation with someone might not be super in-depth. You might not feel like you offered a lot or said the right things in that first conversation. But the important piece is that you planted the seeds. And if we relate it to that picture and that kind of mental image that it gives us, growing seeds takes time and care. Some do not sprout like our best efforts. Like someone mentioned in the chat, you might not get a response. That's the reality. That's okay. We're going to move on though. And they can sprout when and where we least expect them to. I can definitely say that working at Brock for me was a goal that I had for years. And that didn't necessarily come to fruition as soon as I had hoped that it would. But it was connections that I had made. Honestly, those kind of house parties where you sell cleaning products or sell like those smelly products. It was at one of those friends' parties that I got in contact with people, found out that they worked at Brock, and started a friendship. And it was from that, random event of all things that kind of started that series of building relationships. So you never really know when networking is going to benefit you. So with that being said, we are going to get you all involved a little bit and go back and talk about some of those fears and myths. And instead of thinking about those fears, my goal is to shift your mindset. So with that being said, let's take a look at the first one. On the top of your screen, along your options, you should have kind of the emoji or the raise hand function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read out the myth. And if this applies to you, I encourage you to hit that raise your hand function. And I'll be able to see the hands that kind of come up along the screen at the bottom here. So with that being said, and if you're on the, calling in from a phone or just listening in the background, that's okay too. So myth, I can only benefit from connecting with important people or people that I know will help me. So if you've ever felt this way or had this thought, put your hand up. Yeah, maybe you're interested in, the finance field. So you don't think that it's necessarily worth your time to talk to anyone outside of that field. I can see some hands being raised. But think about this way. Everyone you will ever meet knows something that you don't. So I think that's a really unique perspective because here's the thing. Whether they are in the industry or not, everyone has, comes from a different background, has gone through a series of different events in their life. Maybe they're further along in their career from you, and who knows, they might have a piece of advice to offer. Maybe it's just on general networking, general connections, tips and tricks, who knows? They might have something unique to offer you, so give them a chance. If we go on to the next myth, now, with that being said, I think you actually have to, if you put your hand up, you have to click it again to put it down. But feel free to keep it up if this one applies to you as well. So the myth, I don't have enough to offer someone in return. Select that hand up or the thumbs up if that is a way that you have ever felt. But here's the truth, and here's the way that I want you to switch your mindset. You don't have to keep track or worry about when you will give back. The golden rule of networking is simple. Don't keep score. I remember coming out of my time at Brock, I felt like I didn't know anyone. I had only, was connected to a few small businesses within Niagara. I had my small friend group, and I didn't really know many of my professors or people at Brock. So that was a little bit intimidating because I felt like I didn't have much to offer. But with that being said, the further along I've gone throughout my career, the more experience that I've been gaining, the more colleagues and the wider network that I've gotten to know, I feel like maybe I do have a little bit more to offer right now. So it's not about, what can you offer right now? Everybody is at different stages of networking. And that's why everyone from different journeys and different places come together to help each other out. If we look at the next myth, it says, I don't have time for networking. Put your hand up if you've ever felt that way. While sometimes a long event designed for networking may or may not be feasible for you to get to, what some people don't realize is that it can happen quickly, and it can happen, in many circumstances throughout our day-to-day life. Networking doesn't need to be time-consuming, and it can even save you time. And some of these little illustrations at the bottom here, networking is liking something on Facebook, it's sharing, it's posting, it's following, retweeting, tagging, pinning. So although some people think of a very typical form of networking, like going to an event that Brock hosts, or connecting with people on LinkedIn, or formally going to a job fair, what if you were to post on Facebook that you were looking for a job? How many people might reach out to you? How many people have you seen post on Instagram that are looking for, home renovator recommendations, movie recommendations? What do I do when, my kid just did this? What would you recommend? They're sick. What would you do? That's a form of networking as well. It's just a quick, connection with friends, post on social media, responding to someone's status, liking something to show support or that you're interested. These are all ways that networking can happen. How many times have you been in a long line at a grocery store and you turn to the person behind you and you're just having a quick conversation? Who knows whether something in that conversation will come up and you find out that they might need help? Who knows? Networking can happen naturally in so many quick little ways. And it can happen in an actual illustrated and set way at an event as well. We're going to talk about the different settings that networking can happen in as well. But we have a couple more myths to go through. So that being said, either you're good at it or you're not. Extroverts are good at it and introverts are not. I can say that at certain times in my life, although I am someone that enjoys conversation and I enjoy meeting new people, there are times that I have felt so out of my element. And I see a lot of hands being raised as well. Everyone can develop their networking skills, and you can do it in your way. You don't have to necessarily be a natural conversationalist or one to go out and initiate that conversation. But as we're going to go through the presentation today, you'll learn that there are other ways that you can network. And one of those key things, I have students come to me and say, I'm terrified to get a job. I'm awful at interview skills. And we'll work together. We'll work on those interview skills. We'll practice and they get better. And that's the same thing that you can do with networking as well. All right, next slide. I have very few contacts, and so I'll have to reach out to strangers. And maybe you don't want to reach out to strangers at all. Maybe that just sounds like an awful idea for you. Yes, I definitely see some thumbs up and hands here. But here's the thing. You have more contacts than you realize, and they can connect you to many more contacts. So this is a really neat quote. Every person knows, on average, about 250 people. It's not the person you're in front of, but all the people that are behind them you want to get connected to. And when I think about, it's not the person that you're in front of, but all the people that are behind them, I start to think about all the people that are behind me, who have shown interest in my life, who have supported me, who I've worked with, who I've bumped into, who I've gone to school with. And all of a sudden I start to think, yeah, maybe I know a few more people than I thought. So anyways, that's just a really neat perspective with networking. Alrighty, so I believe, yeah, that was kind of it for going through the myths, but I thank you for participating and I thank you for putting up your hand and admitting to the fact that, yeah, you know what, some of those myths I have definitely thought about before. What can you offer? Well, here's a great quote. We can be considerate, we can be respectful, we can be grateful. We can actively listen and we can show genuine interest. We can connect them to someone else that's in our network, and we can share any helpful and relevant content with them. And at some points in our life, we might be able to do all of these things. And at other times, we might not be able to, but we can show interest and we can listen and we can thank them for their time and the information that we learned. And that's okay too. What we're going to do now is we're going to go over some of the key benefits of networking. So there is a really neat slide that I want to show you that's a little bit of a hierarchy. There is a book that has been written about job searching and networking. So let me walk you through this. The typical person going out to job search is going to take a look at this triangle and start at the bottom, and they're going to work their way up. They're probably going to go look on Indeed. They're going to look at general job search websites, big ones like the government website, Charity Village, or some of the common ones that people go onto. Otherwise, you might then, narrow it down a little bit. You might go to some city job boards. There might be some community employment centers that post some job boards. Maybe you'll go to social media and look at some job postings there. Well, if you're still job searching, well, then you're going to maybe go to the company website. You're going to see what postings they have on their website. And then maybe if you're still job searching, and it's been taking a little while, you're going to start to post about it. You're going to, start to reach out to connections. You're going to start asking around a little bit more. You're going to start asking for help. And then lastly, it's unlikely necessarily if you're going in this order, but, as an internal candidate, maybe you can move around. But generally, us as job seekers, we start from the bottom. We start really broad and we kind of work our way up through that triangle. However, an employer, when they are looking for a candidate, they start from the top of the triangle and work their way down. An employer is going to first go with an internal candidate. The reason being is that person knows the company, they know the job, they already have an established rapport of trust with that person, and they already vouch that, they're a great candidate and they know the job. Then next, that employer is going to go based on a referral through a network or an employee. They're going to talk to their friends, their family members, and their current employees, ask if they have any referrals, and ask them, what do they know about that person? Why would they be a good connection? Why are they interested in applying? After that, then they're going to post on their company website or see who's, reached out to the company. Then they might get a little bit broader and post on job boards. But the reason that I walk you through the forward and backwards kind of order of this hierarchy is that, our first instinct is not to network, but an employer's first instinct is to ask for referrals from their network of people. So that's why we as job seekers and candidates need to be really prioritizing networking, because referrals are such a big part of the hidden job market, which I'm going to talk about next. So if you take a look at this little graph here, you will see that the visible job market, what we see on job boards like Indeed, the government website, city job boards, is only actually 20% of jobs that are out there. However, there is the hidden job market, and that makes up 80%. And that 80% is jobs that are not advertised publicly. And these jobs come from networking. These jobs come from employers looking to their employees, their friends, and their family members for referrals. And we access this hidden job market through networking. And it's so much more effective because not only is there a greater chance of success, but there is little to no competition for those jobs. And a personal referral and someone to vouch for you goes so much further than, say, an Indeed application where, there's over 400 or 500 applicants. Now, that being said, the 20% of the job market still works for people. Our point here is just to say that although that works, there are so many more people competing for that 20% of jobs than that 80% of jobs that can be accessed through networking. And so that's why it's so important, and we're talking about it today. If we go to one more slide here, this one ultimately just talks about the benefit of saving time. We're all busy people. We have jobs, we have school. And like we said, one of those myths that we kind of changed our perspective on was that we don't have time. Well, if we look at it from this perspective, networking with each new contact can connect you to an entire network. We will get to know so many more people, or, like we said, you're not just looking at who's in front of you, but who's behind them. There are so many new potential contacts that you will have, which can save you time. You'll get answers to questions or solutions to problems. You'll gain insider information to help you make decisions, which can save you time. Benefit from help and support in reaching your goals, creating that supportive foundation of people that are around you that are encouraging you. You'll spend less time searching for opportunities because networking is proven to help increase the rate at which you'll find a job or find opportunities or learn about information. And like I already mentioned, it'll increase your chances of securing opportunities. So networking saves time, and that is a great benefit. So at this point in time, I am going to hand it over to my colleague, Laura, who's going to walk us through a little bit of the process of how to network.
Excellent. Thank you, Brianna. And if anyone has any questions throughout, and I see there are a couple of great ones there, we certainly will get to those. Please feel free to include your questions in the chat. And if we don't address them through the course of the presentation, we'll get to them at the Q&A period at the end. So we've learned all about the benefits of networking and why we should network and the mindset that we should carry with us as we begin to network. But how do we actually start if it's something that we're not comfortable with or we don't have experience with? So when you start out networking, a great place to begin is with people you already know. Even if that means that you've moved to a different location and you don't know a lot of people there, the benefits of this virtual experience that we're all in right now, you do know people. They may not be nearby, but they also know people. They have information. They have opportunities to share with you. Connect with your family, friends, and acquaintances. Let them know that you're looking for work, or let them know that you're looking to learn about the field that they're in, or have questions about their career journey and their experiences. Sometimes, like Brianna shared, networking happens when you least expect it. At a social gathering, in line at the grocery store, in a casual conversation, at the schoolyard, picking up your kid from school. You may be networking incidentally with a friend or a friend of a friend. You may learn that they work for a company that you're interested in, or their career progression is something that you've always been curious about. And you've just found another opportunity to expand your network without really thinking about it. Not the same as cold calling someone you've never met, but starting organically with people that you know. If you're a current Brock student, talking to your fellow students about the work experience that they've had and their career aspirations. Your professors and your TAs are great resources for information, to bounce questions off of, to get an idea of more information about the field that you're looking to. Consider that not everything goes according to plan. You may have a perfect idea of how you're going to begin networking, but often things just happen. And that's what we call planned happenstance or chaos theory. It's all right to have a plan, but being flexible to the idea that your plan may not come to fruition, and that might actually equal a more important or valuable opportunity for you. There are so many opportunities to connect that Brianna's already shared with us. And I just heard a ping and I was making sure it wasn't my internet going out. Perfect. So opportunities to connect, like Brianna shared, there are events you can attend, whether that's in person one day or virtually now. There's ways to develop and learn more about an industry that you're interested in that aligns with maybe the degree that you're in or somewhere that you're looking to pursue. And of course, there are a lot of opportunities to connect through the resources that you already have at your fingertips. You can access Career Zone to look at a lot of the opportunities that we have in the way of events to connect you to employers who frequently host information sessions. There are career fairs. There are events put on by the university that focus on specific industries and have an opportunity to network with alumni in the career that you're interested in. You can join professional associations in industries that are of interest to you. You can sign up to listservs and get emails about upcoming events or opportunities to network. You can join your local chamber of commerce to get an idea of the different types of industry that are represented where you live. And of course, what you already have access to. You're on social media, perhaps. You can partake in informational interviews. You can reach out, like I said, to those people you already know or people you're curious about and ask to talk about their career path. You can talk to people you know and ask them to introduce you to people that they might be in contact with. And we'll get into that in just a moment here. So some things to think about before you reach out to network, particularly with people you may not know or may not know very well. The first thing you want to really understand is your purpose for networking or your purpose for connecting. And like we talked about at the very beginning, going in with a networking mindset, the idea that you're not there to secure a job, that might be a result down the line of networking, but the purpose of networking is to make a connection, is to learn, and is to grow your network of professionals, of colleagues, and of friends. So really be grounded in what you are hoping to get out of the experience. The next thing you want to do is research. Do your research. Who do you want to connect with? What types of jobs are you interested in? If you've met someone at an event and you're looking to network, what is it that they do? Where do they work? What is their work history? And that's something that's LinkedIn is a great place to do that. And we'll get into that shortly as well. Consider thoughtful questions based on the research that you've done. When you're looking to connect with somebody, really think about what you want to know from them and what you want to ask and how you want to learn. Also, if you're networking in person or networking online with the visual component, think about your professional image. Even though we're all sitting mostly in perhaps our homes or maybe the lucky few of us in our offices, think about what you're wearing. Think about your background and how that presents to the person that you're speaking with, especially if you don't know them very well. Think about how you're dressed. Think about your background behind you. Think about what is available online if someone were to look up your name on the internet. What shows up? Is it an old Facebook photo of attending a university party? Is it your LinkedIn profile that comes up at the top? What's out there? And of course, for those of us who maybe are uncomfortable with connecting with new people, practice how you'll introduce yourself. Who are you? What are your interests? What are you hoping to learn? Going in and preparing to connect, keeping all of these things in mind is so important and valuable. Now, when you're having a conversation with people, it's important to think about some other things as well here. This may be second nature to some people, but for some, it might be uncomfortable. And a way to practice that is to really be mindful of how we connect with people. When you're talking with somebody, whether that be on the phone, in person, or online, really take an interest in what that person is saying and actually listen to them. Don't just think about the questions you're going to ask. And if it helps, write those questions down so you have them available, but really listen to what they're saying, because you can learn a whole lot if you stop focusing on what you need and what you're going to ask next and really think about what they're saying. Try your best to remember the person's name that you're speaking with and use that name in conversation. That way it really solidifies in your brain. I'm one of those people who are terrible with names, so I do my best to repeat that name almost as quickly as it organically makes sense after they introduce themselves, just so I can absolutely make sure that I don't make a mistake. Maintain eye contact as well. This is easier in person sometimes. Sometimes it's easier online, but the key to remember is when you're in a video call, don't look at your little picture at the bottom. Don't look at necessarily their face on the screen. Look directly at your camera, because when you look at your camera and they're looking at you, they see that you're making eye contact. And it is challenging online, but there are these little ways, these small instances of body language and micro expressions that can really convey that interest. Ask a series of open-ended questions, and it's hyperlinked here on the slide, but you can simply go into Google and say, how do I do an informational interview, or great interview questions, or open-ended networking questions, or really anything like that. If you're not sure about specific questions you want to ask, start by getting to know them. Ask them why they got into their field. Ask them a question about the industry that their position may shed light on. Also, remember and consider both the personal and professional details that they share with you in conversation, and be prepared that some people may not be interested in sharing personal details, and try to mirror how you're connecting with them based on what kind of information that they're interested in and what they're willing to share. And of course, don't forget to exchange contact information, whether that be an email or a LinkedIn profile, and ask for a follow-up. So how do we do that? We meet somebody at an event, whether that be today's Lunch and Learn or a networking event in the future or any other version of connection. What do you do? How do you follow up with that? When is it okay to send a message? You want to remember, once you've collected that contact information, follow up in a timely manner. You meet a lot of people at networking events, and if you don't follow up pretty soon, they may have no idea who you are by the time you finally get around to sending a message. I recommend 1 to 2 business days as a best practice, and that way it'll be fresh in their minds who you are and how you're connected. On that note, including something meaningful or memorable as a way of connecting you as you reach out to network. I really enjoyed this event that we attended together, etc. If you had a great conversation with somebody at a networking event, include that in your introduction. It makes it more personal, and they're more likely to recall meeting you and what you talked about. If you said, you know what, I'll follow up with you on that, make sure you do. Make sure you deliver what you said you would deliver. Follow through, because there's a good chance they'll remember having asked you for something, and it's really a good practice, and it's very professional to be able to offer that in return. Of course, like we mentioned, you're not going into networking just to see what you can get out of that. You want to make sure you can offer that person help in any way that you can. And as we talked about, if you're a student, if you're a professional, you always have something to offer. You will always know someone that knows something that someone else doesn't know, and vice versa. So be open to the possibility that you can help them just as much as they can help you. And be grateful for the opportunity to communicate with somebody in this professional context. People are busy right now. People maybe don't want to spend a lot more time virtually than they have to. So express genuine gratitude, thanking them for their time. And that's their most valuable commodity at this point. Thanking them for their time. Thank you for sharing the information that you did. Thank you for making that connection for me. That goes a long way. And of course, if you've learned something valuable, if you have a next step, plan to continue the conversation. Don't think of it as transactional. I'm looking for something from you. You've given me that. Now we don't need to communicate. Plan to continue the conversation. Develop a relationship with that person. Continue to grow that network. So I know I've mentioned a lot so far that we are networking largely in a virtual context at the moment. So I'm going to talk briefly about some ways to network and some benefits of networking that we maybe aren't considering because we're stuck in our homes networking through our computer screens instead of out at events. Now, despite the disadvantages that I'm sure many of us are thinking about right now, there are advantages of networking virtually. If you choose, you can network whenever and however and wherever you choose. You can connect with employers or with colleagues in industry from across the world. Time zones matter less right now because people are online and can be online outside of traditional business hours. You can attend events 2 hours away that you might not have had the capacity to in the past because they're online. As a result of that, you get a great variety of different types of people that you can connect with because everybody is going to these places and networking opportunities are not limited by geography. Virtual networking is a really easy way to capture and collect all of your professional contacts. You don't have to go back from an event, sit in your car and try to remember who you talked to. There's usually a digital footprint of who you connected with, or you can jot it down in an email to yourself as you go through. It's an easy way to collect that information without having a stack of business cards and not really remembering who you talked to about what. Also, virtual online profiles have a lot of information in them that can help you be strategic about your networking. You're not necessarily walking up to someone where all you can see is their name tag and you're not really sure what they do or what industry they're in or what they may be able to share with you. You can look at people's names on LinkedIn, on Google, on company websites and get an idea of their career path, what industry they're in, what their various experiences have been, and you can be more strategic and save time networking that way. And of course, for some people, networking in person is very stressful. You're just out there in a room full of people you don't know, talking yourself up to walk up to a total stranger and put your hand out. There is less pressure networking virtually. If you are not comfortable right away, you can spend your first couple of networking events with your camera off, just listening. And then when you get more comfortable, turn that camera on, have some great questions prepared, but you can kind of warm up to the idea of networking by participating virtually because the pressure's less intense. Home field advantage, you're at home, you're in a comfortable place, and as are the people you're connecting with. So we shared briefly about the benefits of LinkedIn with connecting virtually, one of which is that you get a person's entire career history in one place. This is a great opportunity for you to learn about them before you connect, ask some really good and poignant questions, and just get a background that will help you network strategically. When we connect with someone virtually after we network, so if you meet someone at an event like today and you want to learn more about them and you want to form that connection, a great place to start is to connect via LinkedIn. Now, when I get a LinkedIn request for a connection and I don't know the person and they haven't included a message, I'm really unclear how to proceed. How can I help this person? Why have they connected with me? Is it just because they want to grow their network, or is it because they want to talk to me about something specific or to learn? So always include a personalized message that includes why you want to connect with that person, because primarily it will help them remember who you are if you have met. It'll maybe share something that you have in common with them, like an event you attended or a school that you went to or association that you're a part of. And that'll help that with that warm connection a little bit more. They'll have an idea of how to connect back with you because they'll have more of an idea of who you are. So don't use the typical standard template. LinkedIn does provide, it's listed up at the top right. I'd like to add you to my professional network. Get rid of that and include a personal reason why you want to connect with them, because that's going to vary for each person. So we've got a couple of examples here up on the screen, one of which, hello, refer to them by name. Again, it's easier virtually because you can see their name right in front of you, but to forge that personal connection, use their name. Point out that you attended a similar event or an event or a school or were part of a similar program. Share something that you've learned about them from either their profile or an event they spoke at as a panelist, etc. Connect with them on a personal level, and they're more likely to connect back. And another thing about connecting on LinkedIn, because a lot of you shared a concern that what if that person doesn't reach back? there's a pretty great way to guess whether or not someone's going to respond to you on LinkedIn. If you go to their profile and they have not put anything on it, if it's not updated, if they don't engage with the platform, they may not respond back to you, or it may take them a long time. If someone has a very up-to-date LinkedIn profile, if they're liking articles, if they're connecting, that means that they're probably on the platform and they might respond to you a lot quicker. So when you're using LinkedIn, you can also use it a little bit more strategically as Brock students or Brock alumni. There is a hub on LinkedIn for people who went to Brock, and this is a great place to start by joining that part of LinkedIn and connecting with people based on, if nothing more, the commonality that you both went to Brock. Maybe you were in the same program, maybe you were a year apart. Look up Brock University in the search bar and you can select alumni from the menu there, and you can see in this screen capture 63,000 alumni. It's probably gone up since this photo was captured. Use the search function on the page to look at people who are on LinkedIn who've connected as Brock alumni. You can search by industry. You can search by job title. You can do a general search on LinkedIn as well. If you're looking to meet project coordinators, you can type project coordinator and you'll get a bunch of people that either are in your network or are connections with people who are in your network. And it's a great way to start that conversation. The people you may know tool is great. I frequently go to this section of LinkedIn just to make sure there are not people in there that I should be connecting with that I haven't been connecting with. And that changes all the time. It's a great place to start. You can also start by joining groups related to your industry or things that you're interested in on a professional level. Follow people who inspire you, whether that be famous thought leaders who share ideas that you're passionate about, whether that be industry experts or companies. You can also follow hashtags, things that are interesting to you that you want to keep updated with, and that'll also open up the possibility of your network, of finding people to connect with. There's also a great platform called 10,000 Coffees, and it is another way to get in touch with Brock alumni. It's slightly different than LinkedIn in that you do sign up for the platform, and it's the only people who sign up for it are people who want to connect, want to network. It takes away that awkward middle step of, I'm not sure if this person actually wants to hear from me. 10,000 Coffees is great because you have a hub of people with a similar experience. They went to Brock and they're looking actively to expand their network. And the Brock network includes all faculties and programs. There are also specific hubs for Goodman Business. So if you were part of the Goodman Business School, that's the hub for you to join as well. And when you're filling out your profile on 10,000 Coffees, you can actually get into the details of your career. What do you know that you're able to share with somebody? And what are you looking to learn? And that's the great part of this particular platform, is that if you feel like you have a lot to share in certain areas, then that's a way that the algorithm will pair you with somebody based on what they want to learn, and vice versa. So like we talked about before, you always have something to share with a new connection. It's just a matter of doing some reflection and think, what have I done in my career that is interesting, that is impactful? People want to know about that, and this is a great place to connect. When you're part of the 10,000 Coffees network, you'll get an email with a one-on-one introduction. They'll actually pair you with somebody, and that your option is to continue that conversation or to say, you know what, maybe I don't have time right now. But it's great because it takes the middle step out of networking and it helps you connect a little bit easier for those who are maybe more uncomfortable with sending messages to people you don't know. So last couple of things to think about when you're creating or updating your online profiles, thinking specifically of LinkedIn and 10,000 Coffees. Make sure to complete all sections of your profile. LinkedIn's great. It will tell you what percentage of complete you are in your profile and how strong it is as a result. You want to fill out every section on there because that'll give people in the outside world more information about who you are as a professional. It will encourage more people to connect with you, and it will help employers get a good idea of what your skills are, what your experience is, and what you can offer the world as well. Join hubs, whether that be on 10,000 Coffees or LinkedIn, that align with your interests, your program, your field, your industry. Both LinkedIn and 10,000 Coffees have specific hubs for certain programs. And then, of course, there's the university-wide as well. And of course, always be sure, in the case of 10,000 Coffees, use that opportunity. You're matched with somebody, follow up with them. Book a time to connect. The worst that can happen is they don't have the time to write you back, and that's okay. Sometimes that is going to happen, but you never know unless you take that first step and you reach out. So knowing that we're online right now, and we're online maybe for the foreseeable future, maybe that's wrapping up, who knows, I'm going to share some brief tips about online etiquette. And a lot of these things are probably things you already know, but it's always a good idea to remind yourself that this is the new normal now, and some things we take for granted, and some things that we do that we're not thinking about can actually make a big impact, for better or for worse, on how we're perceived. Networking is always more than two people shaking hands. When you think of networking in the pre-COVID world, you think of walking across the room, putting your hand in someone's face and saying, "Hi, my name is Laura. Nice to meet you." Networking is so much more than that now, particularly because we're now online and there are so many opportunities to connect. So don't forget some of these key tips. Make sure your internet connection is working. My internet doesn't always work. So usually I will tell at least one person if I'm in an event or a meeting, if I disappear, I will come back. My internet's unreliable. Do your best to situate yourself next to your router or modem to make sure you have the strongest possible connection. Make sure that your computer audio is working, and familiarize yourself with the settings, with your audio and visual settings on your computer, particularly if you're plugging in headphones or using another monitor. Make sure that your settings work and that the sound is coming through your headphones and you're speaking into the microphone before you enter in a call. Same with that, the display, test your webcam, whether that's an internal webcam on a laptop or an external webcam. Remember to make sure that that works, so you're not stuck in a situation where you say, "I can't get my camera to work, I'm really sorry." And remember, when you're in an event and you have your camera on, your camera's always on. You don't know when someone can see you. On Teams, for example, you don't know if someone on their end can see you, because you can't see everybody, but you don't know who can see you and who can't see you. So if you have your camera turned on, assume that you're always on camera. Close any unnecessary applications or browsers on your computer. Not only will that help your computer work faster, it'll also keep you from being distracted by your email or by social media or what have you. When you're networking, your goal is to make a connection, and that's really hard to do with the online equivalent of having your phone in your hand. Position yourself, if possible, in a well-lit room, ideally with the light coming from in front. I know that's not possible for a lot of people, and it sometimes depends on what the weather's like outside. Some days I'm lit perfectly, some days I'm blinded by the sunlight, and some days it's dark. And some things are out of your control, but do your best to set yourself up for a good impression and for success. And of course, if you live in a place that's not your own, if you have roommates or housemates or just have a distracting environment, feel free to use a professional preset background. Some applications like Teams are preloaded with some. Or if you want to put your own picture, perhaps of Brock University or a neutral area. If you don't want your personal space seen, that is totally fine. But be prepared. Sometimes with those, it may cut off parts of your features. It may include the chair behind you. Your ears may disappear. There are some little glitches that are involved with preset backgrounds, but it's always better than being uncomfortable with sharing your space. So that's definitely up to you. Even when we're connecting virtually, there are still details that matter, including what you're wearing. Dress assuming that you're going to an in-person networking event, even if you're just sitting down in your chair and connecting through webcam. It's always a good idea to dress to impress. Like I said before, remove distractions or distance yourself from distractions. Maybe turn off notifications on your phone or put it on silent. Close distracting browser tabs or your email. Make sure that your main focus is the person or people you're connecting with. And I said before, look into the camera. It's really hard sometimes, especially since some cameras are backlit and you're staring at a brightly lit dot, but do your best to look into the camera when you're speaking, because to the person seeing you, they see that you're making eye contact and not just focusing on the little image of your face at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, for example. In a lot of virtual platforms, there are options to raise hands, there are options to applaud, there are options to do any number of things. It's a good idea, if those features are available, to use that raised hand feature if you want to ask a question, and also to remember to lower your hand once you've asked it, because some organizers may not see that you've asked your question, and you might have to explain, oops, that was an accident, I didn't mean to. So familiarize yourselves with how these little bits work. And of course, when participating in an online info session, enter your full name if possible without any errors to make sure that if someone wants to connect with you after the event, they have the right information. So with all of that being said, and I realize that's a lot of information, so we're certainly open to questions at the end. I did want to share briefly with you ways to find resources about networking and how to connect to events and our team on Career Zone. So if you're a current Brock student, you have access to Career Zone, but if you're an alumni, you also have access to Career Zone. You will always and forever have access to this resource, to the student resources and the interviewing and CV, cover letter, resume resources, all the resources and materials that are listed on Career Zone. You will have access to that forever. A year after your graduation, up until a year, you will also have access to all the events on the Career Zone event calendar and one-on-one career advising appointments, whether that be with Brianna or myself or someone else on our team. You will have that option. At graduation, if you haven't graduated yet, if you're still a student, you will be given alumni credentials, which will be activated, and then you can log into the website and access all of that content. And of course, as with everything, you can also reset your password, or if you've forgotten your password, through mybrocku.ca. If you're not familiar with Career Zone, this is a couple of screen captures about what we're looking at. So as far as student resources go, you can look at resources about how to prepare for an interview, about how to manage social media from a career perspective, so particularly LinkedIn and 10,000 Coffees, how to build a portfolio, how to gain experiences, all that kind of thing. The event section, like I mentioned, you have access to as a student and up to a year after you graduate. You can check out the event calendar, and we post tons of events, whether that's internal events like this one or events that our employer partners have posted. Some information sessions, networking events, great ways to connect to your industry through Brock and through your connection with Brock. We also have virtual weekly drop-ins and Career Zone cafes. So we have some fantastic career assistants who run regular weekly events talking about some tips for LinkedIn and networking. They also talk about things like how to write a good resume or a cover letter, and also some drop-in sessions where if you have a question and you're not really sure who to ask, drop right in there and ask a member of our team to help you walk through that process of maybe revamping a resume or connecting on LinkedIn. And also you can check, like I said, make a one-on-one appointment with a member of our team and check out the job board as well. There are lots of full-time and part-time opportunities posted on our job boards, both on and off campus. And if you're a Goodman student or a Goodman alum, you have access to the Goodman side of things and the career education or campus career side of things. And if you're a Brock student, you have access to the entire university-wide career education campus career section. So with all of that being said, with all of that information being thrown at you, I'm going to open the floor up for some questions. And I haven't been able to look at the chat since I've been speaking, so I'm sure there's a lot going on in there. But if anybody has a question, please feel free to put it in the chat or raise your hand and unmute yourself and ask the group.
And thank you so much, Laura. We understand that we are kind of at our 1 o'clock mark, and some of you might be kind of wrapping up your lunch break. We're happy to stick around for another minute or two for any questions. So like she said, please post that in the chat. Laura, if you also go to the next slide, all of our contact information is on there. So maybe we can just leave that up for a moment. And at this point, I'm going to stop the recording, but feel free to continue to ask questions.